Welcome to your Telehandler Operator Training Program. This program is intended to help you develop and use safe operating practices when operating variable reach rough terrain forklifts, also known as telehandlers. This program should be used in combination with a participant's guide and additional training materials which you should have received from a course trainer. Additional machine and workplace specific knowledge and operator certification are the responsibilities of the employer and you, the operator. The employer must ensure that each telehandler operator is competent and certified to operate a telehandler, as demonstrated by the successful completion of this training program's theoretical and practical evaluations, and as required in the applicable standards and regulations which will be discussed in the next section of this video. As a telehandler operator, you can make a major contribution towards safety if you comply with all applicable job site, local, state, provincial, or federal rules and regulations related to the proper and safe use of telehandlers. Read, understand, and follow the instructions in this training program and in the manuals supplied with the equipment and any attachments. Use good, safe work practices in a common sense way. Are alert and free from the influences of alcohol, drugs, or medications that might affect eyesight, hearing, reactions, or judgment. Only have qualified operators who are trained and authorized, directed by informed and knowledgeable supervisors operating the machine. Always read and understand the operator's manual and obey all safety rules and operating instructions before operating any telehandler. Complete information on the specific model that you plan to operate can be found in the operator's manual. The operator's manual should be considered a permanent part of your equipment and must remain with the machine at all times. Should you have any questions or find that you don't fully understand any subject covered in this presentation, please discuss them with your trainer. We've divided this video into 4 sections. Section 1 deals with the responsibilities of all parties associated with the operation of telehandlers. In Section 2, we discuss the 5 key concepts of safe machine operation. In Section 3, we'll review the critical issues of center of gravity and the stability triangle. And finally, in Section 4, we will discuss what you need to do to demonstrate your proficiency in the hands-on training to become a qualified telehandler operator. Standards organizations worldwide have developed strict training requirements related to the elements of operation and maintenance of Class 7 variable reach rough terrain forklift trucks, commonly known as telehandlers. In the United States, the American National Standards Institute, or ANSI, and the Industrial Truck Standards Development Foundation, or ITSDF, have established the safety requirements for telehandlers. The recognized standard in the USA is ANSI ITSDF B56.6. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, has clarified the training requirements for telehandler operator training. It was added to Title 29, Code of Federal Regulations, Part 1910.178. The clarification was issued to improve the training of operators with the goal of reducing the number of injuries and deaths that occur as a result of inadequate operator training. Per OSHA, an evaluation of each telehandler operator's performance must be conducted at least once every 3 years. Refresher training, including an evaluation of the effectiveness of that training, must be conducted to ensure that the operator has the knowledge and skills needed to operate the telehandler safely if one or more of the following conditions are true. 1. The operator has been observed to operate the vehicle in an unsafe manner. 2. The operator has been involved in an accident or near-miss incident. 3. The operator has received an evaluation that reveals that the operator is not operating the truck safely. 4. The operator is assigned to drive a different type of truck. Or 5. A condition in the workplace changes in a manner that could affect safe operation of the truck. Much like ANSI ITSDF in the USA, the Canadian Standards Association, or CSA, has published Canada's governing standard, CSA B335, for telehandlers. Per CSA B335, each telehandler operator must receive retraining at least once every 3 years. CSA B335 standards for telehandlers are enforced by OHS, which is similar to OSHA in the USA, and other provincial authorities. Since each province has their own OHS, it's important for you to be familiar with those rules and regulations that apply to the safe operation and maintenance of the telehandler in your area. Remember, only trained and authorized persons age 18 and over must be permitted to operate a telehandler. It is the responsibility of the employer to verify that the following has been covered as part of the operator's training. Operators understand that safe operation is their responsibility, and operators are knowledgeable of and observe the applicable safety rules and practices within the appropriate rules, regulations, and standards that apply to the telehandler as well as the application. As an operator, the safe operation of any telehandler is your responsibility. You must develop safe working habits and be aware of and avoid all hazardous conditions in order to protect yourself and those around you. You must also read and be familiar with the operator's manual for the particular telehandler being operated, and be familiar with the operation and function of all controls and instruments before operating the machine. The operator's manual for the telehandler, and in many cases the attachment, contains key safety information that is related to safe use. As such, it is a critical component to the safe operation of the telehandler and should always be stored inside the operator's cab. There are 5 key concepts of safe machine operation, all of which you will find outlined in your operator's manual. They are: avoid hazardous situations, always perform a pre-operation inspection on the equipment, always perform function tests prior to use, inspect the workplace, and only use the machine as it was intended. These principles, if followed in sequence, will help you to operate the telehandler safely and efficiently. It is critically important before you even get near the work environment or the machine to know what kind of hazards to be looking for. Some of the potential hazards we will be covering during this program are tip-over hazards, traveling hazards, collision hazards, and electrocution hazards. Common sense and planning are required to determine if your work activity will affect the lift capacity and the stability of the machine. Here are some situations to think about and avoid. Do not operate the machine if the load chart is missing. Do not exceed the rated capacity for each configuration. Do not raise the load unless the ground can support all forces imposed by the machine. Do not raise the boom unless the machine is level. The machine level indicator should be at 0 degrees. Do not level the machine using the frame sway controls unless the boom angle indicator is at 0 degrees or less. Do not use the sway control to position an elevated load. Do not raise a load and then drive to position it. When driving, keep the boom at or below horizontal and keep the load close to the ground. Do not raise a load unless it is properly positioned and secured on the forks or attachment. Operate the machine at speeds that will keep the load under control. Start and stop movements smoothly. Do not lower a load without retracting the boom first. Do not operate the machine in strong or gusty winds. Do not increase the surface area of the carriage or the load. Increasing the area exposed to the wind will decrease machine stability. Use extreme care and slow speeds while driving the machine in the travel position across uneven terrain, debris, unstable or slippery surfaces, and near holes and drop-offs. Limit travel path and speed according to the condition of the ground surface, traction, slope, location of personnel, and any other factors which may create a hazard. When the machine is loaded, always travel with the load uphill. When the machine is unloaded, always travel with the forks or attachment downhill. On steep terrain, drive only up and down a hill, and always keep the machine in gear. Do not turn across the slope when the machine is traveling up or down a slope. Keep people, equipment, and material out of the work area. Do not operate the machine while people are under or near the elevated boom, whether it is loaded or unloaded. Do not drive the machine if visibility is obstructed. Do not lift a suspended load or use a personnel work platform without first referring to the telehandler and attachment manufacturer's operating instructions and applicable job site, local, state, provincial, or federal rules and regulations related to the proper and safe use of such attachments. These applications have specific potential hazards which, if not avoided, could result in death or serious injury. These machines are not electrically insulated. That means there is no protection for the operator, bystanders, or machine from electrical shock as a result of contact or unsafe proximity to power lines or any other electrical charge. Keep away from the machine if it contacts energized power lines. Personnel on the ground or in the platform must not touch or operate the machine until energized power lines are shut off. Do not operate the machine during lightning or storms. Safety information about required clearance from power lines and other electrically charged devices can be found in the operator's manual and on safety signs on the machine. Additional potential hazards can be found in the operator's manual. Be sure that you are familiar with these hazards before operation and utilize all means, including those provided in the operator's manual and by the supervisor or employer, to avoid them. There are also more resources on the machine in the form of safety and instructional decals. The safety decals have the safety markings of danger, which indicates a hazardous situation that, if not avoided, will result in death or serious injury. Warning, which indicates a hazardous situation that, if not avoided, could result in death or serious injury. And caution, which indicates a hazardous situation that, if not avoided, could result in minor or moderate injury. The green or blue instructional decals indicate operation or maintenance information. Operators must be properly trained and use their best judgment and experience to take the necessary precautions to avoid these hazards and any others that may exist. Operators must assess the job site variables and avoid exceeding the machine's and the operator's capabilities for terrain and conditions. A second key concept for safe machine operation is the pre-operation inspection. This is important because very often you don't know where the machine has been or how it's been maintained. This visual inspection is designed to keep the operator out of harm's way by discovering if anything is apparently wrong with the machine before the operator performs the function tests. You are looking for things like modifications, damage, loose or missing parts, and hydraulic or other fluid leaks. Your operator's manual has a complete checklist of items you need to inspect. Let's look at a few examples that apply to telehandlers. Be sure that the operators and safety manuals are complete, legible, and in the storage container located in the operator's compartment. Be sure that all decals are legible and in place. Check for coolant, engine oil, and hydraulic oil leaks and proper levels. Electrical components. Hydraulic components. Boom components. Engine and engine components. Pins, bolts, and other fasteners. And wheels and tires. If the machine checks out, you are ready to perform the function tests, our third key concept for safe machine operation. We do function tests to discover any malfunctions before the machine is put into service and to verify the machine is operating properly. Before you begin testing functions, select an area that is firm, level, and free of ground and overhead obstructions. Be sure there is no load on the forks or attachment. Follow the testing sequence listed in the operator's manual. If a machine fails a test, it must be removed from service, repaired, and re-inspected before it can be used. Let's take a look at a few examples of function tests that apply to telehandlers. parking brake, service brake, steering, stabilizers, frame sway, boom raise and lower, boom extend and retract, fork tilt, complete lists of function tests are located in your operator's manual. Our fourth key concept for safe machine operation is the workplace inspection. Earlier, we learned how to identify tip-over, traveling, collision, and electrocution hazards. Now, as you move on to the worksite, you can see what circumstances will contribute to hazardous situations. The workplace inspection helps the operator determine if the workplace is suitable for safe machine operation. It should be performed by the operator prior to moving the machine to the workplace. It is the operator's responsibility to read and remember the workplace hazards, then watch for and avoid them while moving, setting up, and operating the machine. Remember, if these hazardous situations do present themselves, it's your responsibility as an operator to clear those obstacles. Keep your eyes open for drop-offs, slopes, and holes, floor obstructions and hazardous locations, overhead obstructions, energized power lines, wind and unsafe weather conditions. The complete inspection is listed in the operator's manual. It is also important to note that you, as an operator, have an obligation to inform the user or owner if a work environment contains even one thing that will prevent you from safely doing your job. The fifth key concept for safe machine operation is to only use the machine as it was intended. The Operator and Instructions section in the Operator's Manual provides instructions for each aspect of telehandler operation. It is the operator's responsibility to follow all the safety rules and instructions in the Safety and Operator's Manuals. Using the machine for anything other than the activity specified in the Operator's Manual is unsafe. Only trained and authorized personnel should be permitted to operate a telehandler. If more than one operator is expected to use a machine at different times in the same work shift, they must also be trained and authorized operators, and they too are expected to follow all safety rules and instructions in the operators and safety manuals. That means every new operator should perform a pre-operation inspection, function tests, and a workplace inspection prior to each work shift. The operation of any telehandler is subject to certain hazards that can be protected against only by the exercise of intelligence, care, and common sense, and not by mechanical means. It is essential that the operation, maintenance, and service of telehandlers is performed only by competent, careful people trained in the intended use, safe operation, maintenance, and service of this type of equipment. Remember, if you don't follow all safety instructions and exercise safe operating procedures, serious injury or even death could occur. So please, always follow the instructions that the manufacturer has set out for both safety rules and operating instructions. There are many conditions that may affect the stability of a telehandler during operation, such as ground conditions, surface grade, travel speed, wind conditions, weight or size of load, and tire air pressures. These conditions can not only have an influence on stability, but also load handling and safe machine operation. Two critical concepts that you as an operator must know and understand are the theories of center of gravity and the stability triangle. Center of gravity is the single point about which an object is balanced in all directions. It is important to understand the theory of center of gravity during machine operation in order to avoid conditions of instability. The stability triangle is formed by 3 points on the machine: the 2 front tires, or stabilizers, and the pivot point at the center of the rear axle. During machine operation, the location of center of gravity can move under different operating conditions, such as traveling, braking, and lifting the load. If the center of gravity moves outside the stability triangle at any time during operation, the telehandler will become unstable and tip over. In addition, each load has its own center of gravity. When that load is placed on a telehandler, it creates what is called a combined center of gravity. It is critical to understand how this combined center of gravity can impact machine stability. Let's take a look at some typical scenarios that you may encounter. When a telehandler is loaded in the stowed position, the center of gravity moves forward and lower towards the front of the machine and closer to the operating surface. Extending the boom of the telehandler when the machine is loaded causes the center of gravity to move higher and toward the front of the machine. The heavier the load being lifted, the further the combined center of gravity will move toward the front of the stability triangle. Remember, if the combined center of gravity moves beyond the front of the stability triangle due to lifting a load in excess of the machine's rated capacity, a forward tip over may occur. Always refer to the machine's load chart and never exceed the machine's rated lift capacity in any of the lifting zones. Raising the retracted boom of the telehandler, with or without the load, moves the center of gravity higher, away from the ground, and toward the rear of the machine. Lowering the retracted boom of the telehandler, with or without a load, moves the center of gravity lower and toward the front of the machine. If the boom is raised to a high boom angle while the telehandler is on a slope, the center of gravity will shift rearwards and out of the stability triangle, and this will cause a backward tip over. Remember, the telehandler boom should never be raised if the machine is not level. If the boom is being raised while the machine is on a side slope or not level, the center of gravity moves higher and toward the rear of the telehandler. As the boom continues to be raised, the center of gravity position may fall outside the stability triangle, and this will cause a side tip over. Use the frame sway controls to level the machine on a slope before raising the boom to improve machine stability. Do not use the frame sway controls if the boom angle is above 0 degrees. Do not raise the boom if the machine is not level. When the telehandler forks are loaded and the boom is raised from stowed position, the center of gravity moves higher and toward the rear of the machine. Unloading the telehandler when the boom is raised moves the center of gravity lower and toward the rear of the machine. Telehandler operation, such as machine motion or suspended loads, creates dynamic forces on the machine and the load. Dynamic forces can suddenly shift the location of the combined center of gravity to outside the stability triangle and cause the machine to become unstable. Let's take a look at some conditions which may cause instability due to dynamic forces. The handling of suspended loads by means of a truss boom or other device can introduce dynamic forces affecting the stability of a rough terrain forklift truck that are not considered in the stability criteria of ANSI ITSDF B56.6 safety standards. Grades and sudden starts, stops, and turns can cause the load to swing and create a serious hazard if not externally stabilized. If lifting and transporting a suspended load is permitted on the job site, the following criteria should be followed. The user and the operator must comply with all applicable job site, local, state, provincial, or federal rules, regulations, directives, and standards related to the use of the truck with a suspended load. The user must ensure that the operating personnel are given the necessary training. When a telehandler is traveling forward with a load and heavy braking is applied, The change in dynamic forces results in a sudden forward shift in the load's center of gravity. If the telehandler's speed before braking is significant, the combined center of gravity may move outside the stability triangle, which could cause a forward tip over. Turning the telehandler, with or without a load, causes lateral dynamic force, which can result in a sideways shift in the center of gravity. If the telehandler turning speed is high, the center of gravity may move outside the stability triangle, which could cause a side tip over. Some telehandler models are equipped with a rear axle lock that engages when the boom angle and extension reach a certain point. When the rear axle lock is engaged, the stability zone for the telehandler changes from a triangle to a trapezoid, increasing stability in certain situations. Again, always refer to the machine's load chart and never exceed the machine's rated lift capacity in any of the lifting zones. Load charts show the maximum lift capacity at the various lifting heights and boom elevation angles. The maximum allowable attachment capacity referenced on the load chart changes as the boom is raised and extended to maintain the stability of the telehandler. Load charts are typically located inside the operator's cabin and should always be clearly legible and visible to the operator in the normal operating position. Be sure that the load chart in the telehandler matches the machine and the approved attachment on the machine before lifting the load. Never operate a telehandler without the proper load chart. If you always read and apply the information found on the load chart and remain consciously aware of how the combined center of gravity and the stability triangle interact, you can make a significant and positive impact on your safety and the safety of those around you. If you have successfully completed your participant's guide and the written test, you are almost ready to operate a telehandler. Read the operator's manual for the specific machine you wish to operate. Then you must operate the machine to demonstrate proficiency in front of a qualified person. Let's review the steps one more time. First, read and understand your operator's manual. Be aware of hazards to look out for and avoid them. Perform a pre-operation inspection on the equipment. Perform function tests prior to use. Inspect the workplace for unsafe conditions and familiarization. And only use the machine as the manufacturer intended. Your trainer will test your proficiency using the hands-on proficiency demonstration check sheet supplied with this training program. Once you have successfully completed all of the steps, you will be considered a qualified telehandler operator. We know you can succeed, but it's up to you. Good luck, and be safe out there.